Okay, so you want to own a data center. A huge windowless building sits behind a fence. The doors stay locked. The machines inside run all day and all night, and companies pay you every month because their digital operations cannot afford to stop. No storefront, no crowds, no shelves. Just a silent building collecting rent from the cloud. That is the fantasy. The reality starts with a strange fact. In the version of this business most investors actually own, the computers may not belong to you. The customer brings the servers. The customer controls the software and the information. You own the building, the power systems, the cooling, the security, the fiber connections, and the responsibility for keeping everything alive. And that responsibility is where the simple story ends. You can spend hundreds of millions of dollars before one cabinet earns rent. You can finish the building and still wait years for enough electricity to reach it. You can fill every available room and discover that the property has no capacity left to sell. And one tenant can make a building look perfectly occupied, right up until the day the tenant leaves. That happened at a data center in Northern Virginia. One customer occupied the entire facility, one lease controlled the income. When the customer moved out, the building went from full to empty in a single decision. What happened after that is the part worth watching, because it explains why some empty data centers remain extraordinarily valuable while some brand new ones never become real businesses at all. Before we get there, start with one locked cabinet. The metal cabinet sits inside a secured room. The customer owns the servers inside it, but those servers are useless without everything surrounding them. Electricity has to reach them through protected equipment. Heat has to leave faster than the chips created. Fiber has to connect them to networks, cloud platforms, customers, or other companies in the same building. Cameras watch the room. Access systems control the doors. Fire systems stand ready. Staff monitor the equipment and respond when something changes. That is what you are actually providing. A warehouse gives a customer a dry place to put equipment. A data center gives the equipment a controlled environment where it can keep working when the ordinary world outside becomes unreliable. There are other ways to own this industry. A technology company can build a private facility for its own use. An investor can buy shares in a real estate investment trust that owns many properties. Some operators own their buildings, while others lease them from landlords and depend on those landlords for parts of the power or maintenance system. But the central economics are easiest to see in the third-party owner and operator. The customer brings the digital business. You provide the physical conditions that make the digital business possible, and those conditions are expensive. Take a hypothetical 20-megawatt facility. That is large enough to serve serious customers without being one of the biggest campuses in the world. JLLLL estimated that the average global shell and core construction cost in 2025 was about $10.7 million per megawatt. Across 20 megawatts, that is roughly $214 million. That figure covers the owner side shell and core. It does not mean the building is filled with advanced computing equipment. For an artificial intelligence installation, the customer's technology fit-out can cost as much as $25 million per megawatt. Across the same 20 megawatts, the servers, networking, and related technology could reach another $500 million. So the plain box beside the road may support machinery worth several times the building itself. But the walls are not the hardest part. Imagine you have bought the land, received local approval, ordered major equipment, and poured the concrete. The building is taking shape. Lenders are charging interest. Insurance is active. Engineers, security teams, and contractors are being paid. Then the utility tells you the required grid connection is still years away. JLL has reported that the average connection wait in primary markets exceeds 4 years. That does not mean every site waits exactly that long. It means the most important construction material in this business may be something you cannot pour, ship, or install yourself. Electricity has to arrive at the scale the property promised. Until it does, you do not own an operating data center. You own an expensive building waiting for permission to become one. This is why cheap land can be a trap. A remote site may offer plenty of acreage and a low purchase price, but if the utility has to build transmission, expand a substation, or place the project behind years of other requests, the savings on land can disappear inside financing costs and lost time. And this is where headline announcements become dangerous. A developer can announce a campus designed for hundreds of megawatts. The number sounds enormous, but those megawatts may describe the final plan across several phases. Some may be under construction, some may be reserved by customers, some may exist only in an agreement that depends on future utility work. Announced power is not the same as delivered power. The market can be desperate for capacity while your site earns nothing. So why do investors keep building these places? Because when the capacity is real and the customers arrive, the revenue can be unusually durable. The simplest layer is rent for capacity. A smaller customer may take a few cabinets or a secured cage. A larger company may lease an entire room, a whole building, or a dedicated block of electrical capacity. The contract can run for years, and the payment arrives repeatedly because the customer needs the environment every day. This is one reason the business attracts infrastructure and real estate investors. Equinix, one of the largest operators in the industry, reported about $9.2 billion of revenue in 2025, and about 94% of that was recurring. That does not tell you what one building earns. Equinix is a large global platform, but it shows the attraction of the model. Once a customer installs equipment, connects it, tests it, and builds important operations around that location, moving is difficult. The equipment has to be shut down, transported, reinstalled, reconnected, tested again, and moved without breaking the services that depended on it. The rent is only the first layer. Electricity may be bundled into the price, metered separately, or passed through under the contract. Installation work and remote support can add revenue. But one of the most interesting sources of income is interconnection. Walk into a meet-me room and you may see racks of fiber cables linking one customer to another. A short cross-connect can connect a company directly to a network, a cloud platform, a financial service, or a business partner already inside the facility. The cable itself is not impressive. It uses almost no floor space. The access behind it is valuable. Equinix reported about $1.7 billion of interconnection revenue in 2025, alongside roughly $6.5 billion from colocation. Again, those are company-wide figures, not the economics of one property, but they reveal why an established location can be difficult to replace. A new building can copy the walls. It can buy similar generators. It can install similar cooling. It cannot instantly copy years of customers connecting to one another in the same place. That network can make a mature facility more useful each time another important participant joins it, and it explains why the newest building is not always the best building. A remote site with empty rooms and cheap power may be excellent for one kind of workload. A smaller facility in an established network hub may be more valuable for another. The building has to match what the customer is trying to do. So far, the model sounds almost unfair. The customer pays recurring rent, moving is painful. Electricity may be reimbursed. Connections generate additional income. Demand is rising. Now stand in the electrical room when the utility feed disappears. The servers do not get several minutes to wait. The transfer has to begin almost immediately. Batteries or another uninterrupted power system carry the load. Generators start. Switchgear moves electricity through another path. Cooling equipment keeps running because a server without power is a problem. But a server with power and no cooling becomes another problem very quickly. Somewhere in that sequence, a trained operator is watching alarms and following a procedure that may have been practiced many times for a moment everyone hoped would never arrive. This is the product customers are buying when they pay for reliability. Not electricity when everything is normal, electricity when something has failed. That is why one working system is not enough. A data center may have additional pumps, generators, electrical paths, cooling units, and other spare capacity. Some of that equipment can sit unused for long periods. It still has to be purchased, tested, serviced, fueled, and replaced. Redundancy looks wasteful right up until it becomes the only reason the customer stays online. And even then, the system is not invincible. Uptime Institute found that power was the primary cause of 45% of respondents' most recent impactful data center incidents. Its outage work also found that procedures and human actions remained an important source of failure. The building can contain millions of dollars of backup equipment and still be exposed to one badly timed maintenance step. For the owner, an outage is not just a technical event, it can create service credits, emergency repair costs, damaged equipment, customer claims, insurance problems, and a renewal conversation that suddenly becomes much harder. In the sample uptime discussed, more than half of recent significant incidents exceeded $100,000, and roughly 1 in 5 exceeded $1 million. That is not the cost of every outage. It is evidence that the promise being sold has financial consequences when it breaks. Now, follow the electricity after it enters the building. Some of it reaches the customer's servers. The rest supports the systems around them: cooling, power conversion, lights, controls, pumps, fans, and other equipment. The common measure is power usage, effectiveness, or PUA. It compares the total power used by the facility with the power delivered to the information technology equipment. Uptime Institute's 2025 survey reported a weighted average PU of 1.54, use a 10 megawatt server load. At that PU, the facility draws about 15.4 megawatts in total. 10 megawatts reach the computing equipment, another 5.4 megawatts support the building around it. Run continuously, that total is roughly 134.9 gigawatt hours in a year, although the real number changes with utilization, climate, and operating conditions. The useful point is not that the extra power is simply wasted. Cooling and power protection are part of the service. The point is that a digital business creates a very physical operating bill. A low PU can make that bill more efficient. It cannot tell you whether the property is full, whether the rent is good, whether the debt is manageable, or whether the customer will renew. Some contracts push most of the energy cost back to the customer. Digital Core REIT reported that 85% of its rental revenue in 2025 came from structures where customers were responsible for energy costs. That can protect the owner from part of a price increase. It does not protect the owner from failing to deliver the power. And now the floor plan starts to become misleading. Picture a data hall with several empty spaces between cabinets. To a normal landlord, that looks like inventory. Put another tenant there and collect more rent. But the electrical system may already be committed. The cooling plant may be near its limit. Another cabinet may fit on the floor and still be impossible to operate safely. The room is not physically full. Economically, it can be sold out. The reverse can happen too. A room can be full of equipment that uses less power than expected, leaving electrical capacity underused. Or one customer can lease an entire property, producing a perfect occupancy number while one contract controls every dollar of rent. This is why square feet can hide more than they reveal. Equinix has warned that rising power demand per cabinet can exceed the design capacity of older facilities. In many data centers, power rather than space becomes the limiting factor. Physical room may remain unused because the building cannot support more load. Artificial intelligence raises the stakes. Many older facilities were designed for cabinets drawing much less power than the densest modern equipment. Uptime Institute found that most surveyed facilities still had no racks above 30 kilowatts, while a minority reported much higher densities, including rare examples above 100 kilowatts. The cabinet may occupy the same patch of floor. Everything around it changes. More electricity has to reach it. More heat has to leave. Electrical distribution may need to be strengthened. Cooling may need to be redesigned, sometimes with liquid systems. Fire protection, structural loading, and customer fit-out may all need another look. So the artificial intelligence boom does not lift every building equally. It can increase the value of a modern, power-rich facility. It can also expose an older building that cannot support the customer's equipment without expensive work. Another older building may remain highly valuable because its customers need connectivity more than extreme density. The real product is finally visible. You are not mainly selling floor area. You are selling energized, coolable, connected capacity that remains available when the customer needs it. Now go back to Northern Virginia. The property at 8217 Linton Hall Road was completed in 2000 as a purpose-built, one-story hyperscale data center. By the end of 2024, one customer occupied the entire facility. The property represented about 10% of Digital Core REIT's annualized rent. On a report, it looked ideal. One building, one customer, 100% occupied. But the customer's lease expired on June 30, 2025, and the customer moved out. There was no slow decline across several suites, no gradual drop from 90% to 80% to 70%. The building went dark as an income-producing property because one agreement ended. During the third quarter, the owner took it out of service for a comprehensive refurbishment. That meant the building was not simply waiting for another company to move into the old setup. It had to be prepared for the next customer, the next equipment, and the next contract. The owner now had two clocks running. One measured how quickly a replacement customer could be found. The other measured how long it would take before that customer could actually begin paying rent. Those clocks are not the same. In January of 2026, about 6 months after the former tenant left, Digital Core REIT announced a new 10-year agreement with an investment-grade global cloud provider. That sounds like the problem was solved. It was only half solved. The new lease was scheduled to begin on December 1, 2026. Between the old tenant leaving and the new rent beginning, the property was expected to spend roughly 17 months without that rental income. The replacement had been signed. The building still needed refurbishment and customer fit-out. This is what a vacancy number cannot show. The market can have almost no available capacity, the owner can already have a committed customer, and the property can still be months away from producing rent. But the other half of the case matters just as much. The new agreement was expected to produce about $14.8 million of annualized net property income, or about $13.3 million at the REIT's 90% share. That was approximately 35% above the previous net rent. Part of the increase came from roughly 20% like-for-like rent growth. Part came from expanding the building's sellable capacity by 13%, bringing it to 10.8 megawatts. The building did not recover because empty data centers are automatically safe. It recovered because the location, infrastructure, and path to more sellable power remained valuable enough to justify the work and the wait. That is the uncomfortable strength of this business. A full property can be one decision away from losing all of its rent. An empty property can still be scarce enough to come back stronger. The difference is not the appearance of the building. It is what the building can still deliver. The wider market makes this even clearer. At the end of 2025, CBRE measured vacancy at about 1.4% across its defined primary North American markets. Cushman & Wakefield, using a broader market set, reported another low vacancy figure and found that nearly 89% of capacity under construction across the Americas was already committed before delivery. Customers are chasing future capacity before the buildings are finished. That should make development easy. It does not. The same market reports describe projects delayed by power procurement, permitting, and zoning. Existing capacity becomes more valuable because new supply is difficult to complete. Power scarcity protects the operating owner from competition. Then the same owner tries to build another phase and joins the queue. This is the structural tension running through the entire industry. The resource that creates the moat is also the resource that slows the expansion, and it creates two very different versions of ownership. In the strong version, the utility capacity is physically deliverable. The facility can support the type of equipment its customers actually use. It has multiple fiber paths and a location that connects customers to the networks, clouds, or business partners they need. Electricity risk is handled clearly in the contracts. Lease expirations are spread out, or the customer base is broad enough that one departure does not erase the building's income. The owner also has the one thing that does not appear in the rack count: time. Time to wait through construction. Time to replace major equipment. Time to refurbish a property after a tenant leaves. Time to let a signed customer complete its fit-out before the rent begins. In that version, recurring capacity payments can be extremely durable. Interconnection and support can deepen the customer relationship. Scarcity can support pricing. Expansion can happen in stages tied to demand rather than one enormous bet. Now take the same boom and give it to a weak owner. The land is cheap, but the grid connection is uncertain. Debt begins before the power arrives. The development plan counts future megawatts as if they already exist. One customer signs for the whole building, and the perfect occupancy number hides a single renewal cliff. The facility was designed for lower density equipment, but the purchase price assumes it will serve the newest workloads without major changes. Then the utility date moves, or the tenant leaves, or the cooling system needs a retrofit that was never in the original budget. The market can still be strong. Other data centers can still be full. Artificial intelligence demand can still be rising. Your building can still be the wrong building. That is why a valuable asset can remain a bad purchase. If the buyer pays today for power that may arrive years from now, perfect leasing that may not continue, and upgrades that have not been funded, the growth story has already been charged into the price. The business is not passive because the contracts are recurring. Equinix spent about $4.3 billion on capital expenditures in 2025, while producing about $9.2 billion of revenue. That total includes growth and expansion, so it is not a same-year operating expense and should not be treated like one, but it shows the scale of the reinvestment behind the recurring income story. Even the existing platform requires replacement, maintenance, and adaptation. The machines change. The density changes. The cooling changes. The customer mix changes. The owner keeps spending to make sure the promise does not become outdated. So, does owning a data center actually work? Yes, when the scarce things are already real. The power has to be deliverable, not promotional. The cooling has to fit the workload. The fiber has to reach the places the customer values. The contracts have to deal honestly with energy costs and renewal risk. The owner has to survive the years when capital goes out before rent comes in, and the months when a customer has signed but the building is still being prepared. The weak version does not always end in a spectacular failure. Sometimes it is quieter. A finished shell waiting on the grid. An occupied property approaching one dangerous lease date, an older building with empty floor space it cannot sell, a new agreement that will eventually pay more, but not soon enough for an owner without cash. That is what the fence and the windowless walls conceal. At the beginning, the data center looked like the easiest building in the world to own. The customers never came inside to shop. The product never sat on a shelf. The rent seemed to arrive from machines that could not leave. But the machines were never the owner's real product. The building is only the shell. What you are really selling is a powered connection that has to stay cold, stay connected, and stay available through every failure the customer is paying you not to have.